and free on all platforms.
Putin puts his military on display. Tonight, Russian troops commemorate Victory Day, Russia's defeat of Nazi Germany in World War II. Putin claims his forces are fighting in Ukraine to secure their homeland, but new images reveal the extent of the horrors of war. Captured. A 10-day manhunt for an escaped murder suspect and the former corrections officer accused of helping him get away is over. What we now know about their apprehension. Tonight in our Poison series, ABC's own Bob Woodruff speaks with a former Army medic who treated him with the drug fentanyl when he was severely wounded covering the war in Iraq.
I was badly hit, and there you were. You helped to save my life.
That medic later became addicted to opioids, and an overdose on fentanyl nearly killed him. We'll have his remarkable story of addiction and recovery tonight. The start of a potentially critical week in the showdown over abortion in the wake of that leaked draft opinion indicating the Supreme Court might overturn Roe versus Wade. Democrats positioned to vote on a bill that would protect the abortion rights for millions of women, while Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell weighs in on a possible federal ban on abortion. Vacation mystery. What killed 3 American tourists at a resort in the Bahamas? The investigation into the strange circumstances. The history, the impact, and the fragility of our democracy. Tonight, I talk with former Attorney General Eric Holder about fighting for voting rights.
I'm a former black attorney general. That is a sign of progress, and yet we're not yet at the place where we need to be as a nation.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Lindsay Davis. We begin tonight with breaking news after a week-and-a-half-long manhunt for an escaped Alabama inmate and a former Corrections Department employee. The two have finally been caught. Officials say that employee had developed a romantic relationship with the inmate and that she facilitated the escape. Late today, the sheriff in Lauderdale County, Alabama, announced that Casey White and Vicki White were arrested by U.S. Marshals hundreds of miles away in Evansville, Indiana. And we are learning tonight Vicki shot herself and is seriously injured as a result. She could face up to 10 years in prison for her role in the escape. The sheriff saying late today that if there's one thing he's learned, it's that you don't know who you can trust. The pair is seen in surveillance video leaving the jail 11 days ago. Vicki White claimed that she was escorting the inmate to a court appointment, but that appointment did not exist. Authorities say that the tip came in from citizens. The sheriff hailing the community's role in the arrest, saying, "We got a dangerous man off the street today." Elwin Lopez has the latest developments and leads us off.
Tonight, authorities announcing an end to the 11-day manhunt for capital murder suspect Casey White and former corrections officer Vicki White.
Casey White and Vicki White are in custody. The U.S. Marshals were in pursuit of a black Ford pickup. I think it was a Ford 150. Casey White was driving that vehicle. Vicki White was a passenger. Casey White surrendered.
The duo captured after a tip, that pursuit ending in a wreck.
Vicki White has been transported to the hospital.
This just hours after confirming a new sighting, releasing these images showing a Ford F-150 pickup truck believed to have been used by the duo. It was taken almost a week ago on May 3rd at a car wash in Indiana, about 175 miles away from Middle Tennessee, where authorities believe the duo ditched another vehicle on the same day they went missing. And today, new charges of forgery and identity theft filed against Vicki White. The sheriff says she bought that Ford Edge with an alias. The 17-year veteran last seen in this video checking out of a hotel moments before she left the detention center with that inmate, all under the guise of a court appointment that never existed.
Just an extraordinary set of circumstances here. Elwin Lopez joins us now from Huntsville, Alabama. Elwin, what more are we learning tonight about how these two were caught?
Yeah, Lindsay, authorities say it all started with a tip that led them to a hotel. Then the duo took off and it all ended in a wreck. And tonight, the sheriff saying that Casey White will never see the light of day again. Lindsay?
All right, Elwin, our thanks to you. Now to the pandemic. Tonight, new numbers show the rate of breakthrough cases leading to death is increasing. It comes as new cases are up more than 20% across the country and at least 10% in 45 states and territories, including right here in the Northeast. But health experts warn the infection numbers are likely much higher because so many people are testing at home or not testing at all. Here's ABC's Eva Pilgrim.
Tonight, the U.S. nearing a grim milestone, 1 million COVID deaths. The National Cathedral tolling the funeral bell 1,001 times to remember the lives lost. More than 997,000 people have died from COVID in this country. Experts expect we will cross the 1 million mark within the next week. And tonight, new COVID cases climbing. Nearly the entire country, 45 states and territories are seeing at least a 10% increase in COVID infections. The current hotspot, the Northeast. Boston officials recommending but not yet mandating a return to masks indoors, as some parts of the city are now considered high risk.
We are in a time where we're learning to live with COVID.
In New York City, the transmission rate up 75% since last month, the highest level since the Omicron surge in January. The mayor monitoring the spread as he considers a return to the mask and vaccine mandates.
While we've seen the surge in cases, we're not seeing that correlated impact in mortality. The challenge we have is going forward, especially into the summer months, where we may see an impact in the South, where we don't have the same level of vaccination and boosting and testing.
71-year-old Shep Shove experienced a breakthrough infection. He's been fully vaxxed and boosted, but 12 days ago tested positive for COVID.
It just kept getting worse for another couple of days, and then it stopped getting worse.
He says Paxlovid helped keep him out of the hospital.
Yeah, what would it have been like if I hadn't had 3 vaccines and the Paxlovid? So I have to think it would have been pretty bad.
So many crediting Paxlovid with really helping them. Eva Pilgrim joins us now. And Eva, as we see this increase in new infections across the country, which is likely drastically undercounted, are we also starting to see a spike in COVID cases in children?
We are, Lindsay, and we're actually seeing a spike in the number of hospitalizations in those children. It's up 15% in the last week, a staggering 70% in the last 2 weeks. Lindsay?
Wow. All right. Eva Pilgrim, our thanks to you. Next to the mysterious deaths of 3 Americans and a 4th sickened at a luxury resort in the Bahamas, toxicology samples have now been sent to a U.S. lab. Authorities say all 4 Americans sought medical help the night before 3 of them were found dead. Our Will Reeve reports from the Bahamas and has the latest on these deaths.
And this is the villa of the 3 people that passed away.
Tonight, an urgent investigation in the Bahamas as officials identify the 3 Americans who mysteriously died at the Sandals Emerald Bay Resort in Exuma. Michael and Robbie Phillips of Tennessee found dead in their beachside villa. Their family writing, "Our hearts are grieving and broken, but full of hope." Vincent Chirella died in an adjacent room. His wife Donis surviving, airlifted to a hospital near Miami.
They were celebrating their 40th anniversary, which was a few days away from ours. Just a lovely, lovely couple that was just full of life and just, enjoying their time in paradise.
Their son Austin telling ABC News his mother woke up Friday and her legs and arms was swollen and she couldn't move. Authorities say all 4 reported feeling ill the night before. 2 even went to a healthcare facility, complaining of nausea and vomiting. The Minister of Health telling ABC News doctors recommended 2 of them be airlifted off the island, but they refused. Resort staff contacting police just after 9 a.m. Friday, who then also found Michael and Robbie Phillips dead next door. Police say both individuals showed signs of convulsion.
The only thing that makes sense in my mind, because this was 2 separate couples that didn't really have anything to do with each other, staying in the same building, the only common denominator is the air that they were breathing.
So strange. Will Reeve joins us now from the Bahamas. So, Will, what comes next in the investigation?
Lindsay, Bahamian authorities announced today that they're working with a Philadelphia-based lab on the toxicology report and that it could be weeks before the autopsy results are released. Lindsay?
Will Reeve in the Bahamas for us. Thanks so much, Will. Now to the war in Ukraine. Russia was among the countries marking Victory Day in Europe today, a celebration of the triumph over the Nazis in World War II. Russia's Vladimir Putin did not signal victory in Ukraine in a speech today, but he also did not signal an escalation there. He did use the holiday and the Kremlin's show of force to falsely claim the war in Ukraine continues the anti-Nazi fight, calling it justified. ABC's Ian Pannell reports tonight from Ukraine.
Tonight, Putin using the massive parade in Red Square as a rallying cry for his war in Ukraine. The annual spectacle commemorates the Soviet victory over the Nazis, but in his speech, Putin used a war of necessity in the past to justify a war of choice today, falsely accusing America, NATO and Kyiv of provoking the conflict. The Russian leader telling his forces in Ukraine, "You're fighting for the motherland, for its future, so no one forgets the lessons of the Second World War." But with so many troops tied up in Ukraine, this was a smaller parade than normal. No flyby of fighter jets, bad weather blamed. Many feared Putin would double down, escalate the war, announce a military draft even. But instead, he repeated old lies about fighting Nazis in Ukraine. And in his own Victory Day address released today, a defiant President Zelensky walking the streets of Kyiv, declaring Russia wouldn't win. Still, innocent civilians are dying. In an eastern Ukrainian village, more than 60 people are feared dead after Russians destroyed a school serving as a shelter. In the northeast, less than 20 miles from the northern border with Russia, Putin's war is going in the wrong direction. Village after village is being reclaimed by dogged Ukrainian troops.
This entire area is littered with the debris of Russia's war. There are tanks, armoured personnel carriers, there are a couple of dead Russian soldiers up there, and the air is thick with the stench of decomposition. And this is what happened to their tanks, and this is what Putin's victory looks like. Hello, Yuri. Dobry dzień.
Yuri's a highly decorated hero of World War II. The medals on his chest speak to the battles he fought alongside his Russian comrades against the Nazis. He can't find words for what they're doing now. Russia shells his city almost daily with rockets and missiles. His apartment block has been hit, but Yuri refuses to leave. Yuri says he's promised himself he'll stay alive until Ukraine wins this war. It'd be the second miraculous victory in one long lifetime.
Ian Panel joins us tonight from eastern Ukraine. Ian, there were reports over the weekend that President Biden was not happy with recent leaks about intelligence shared with Ukrainian officials. How did the White House respond to that today?
Yeah, that's right, Lindsay. I mean, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki has been saying that Biden was, quote, displeased with the leaks that U.S. intelligence played that role in Ukraine, not just killing Russian generals, but also sinking Russia's Moskva warship. Remember, the Moskva was the flagship of the Russian Black Sea Fleet. It was sunk by the Ukrainians last month, acting on intelligence provided by America, but the U.S. officials are insisting that they added their own intelligence and that they hadn't pinpointed it for it to be targeted. The president, though, believing that the stories that came out that we were reporting here overstated the U.S. role and were, quote, inaccurate. Lindsay?
Okay, Ian Panel, our thanks to you as always. Now to the battle over abortion. In Washington, Senate Democrats are preparing a Wednesday vote to protect abortion rights, even though they don't have the 60 votes needed to pass the bill. Meanwhile, Republican Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell said a nationwide abortion ban could be on the horizon if the Supreme Court strikes down Roe v. Wade and if his party reclaims Congress. Here's ABC senior White House correspondent Mary Bruce.
After a weekend when thousands took to the streets rallying for abortion rights, some gathering outside the homes of Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh and Chief Justice John Roberts, tonight security around the justices is stepping up. The U.S. Marshals now involved in protecting the members of the court after that leaked draft opinion indicated they're preparing to overturn Roe v. Wade. It comes as the top Republican in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, is indicating overturning Roe could be just the beginning, that if Republicans gain control of Congress, they could pass a federal ban on abortion. McConnell saying if the leaked opinion became the final opinion, legislative bodies, not only at the state level but at the federal level, certainly could legislate in that area. Adding, I don't think it's much secret where Senate Republicans stand on that issue. Today, we took that to the White House.
How at risk does the administration believe the U.S. is to completely outlaw abortion?
I think we're at serious risk. You noted Mitch McConnell and other Republicans in Congress are talking about a national ban on a woman's right to choose.
The White House warning Republicans could try to go even further, possibly banning some forms of contraception. If Roe is overturned, 26 states would quickly move to severely restrict access to abortion or ban it outright. 13 have already passed so-called trigger laws that would ban the procedure the moment Roe is struck down. Now, a number of Democrat-led states like New York and Connecticut are exploring ways to assist women seeking help. And today, Chicago's mayor announced funding to help women from other states who cross into Illinois to get an abortion.
These dollars will go to support transportation, lodging, follow-up care, and if necessary, the safe and legal procedure of abortion.
Mary Bruce joins us now from the White House. Mary, Democrats don't have the 60 votes needed to pass a bill protecting abortion rights in the Senate on Wednesday. So what does the White House say that the strategy is here?
Well, Lindsay, this is a purely symbolic vote. In fact, the lone undecided Republican Lisa Murkowski just announced that she is a no. Democrats and the White House are well aware this vote isn't going anywhere. But what it will do is force every Republican to go on the record, as, of course, Democrats and the president prepare to make abortion rights a key issue in the upcoming midterm elections. Lindsay.
No doubt about that. All right, Mary Bruce, our thanks to you. And when we come back, the grisly discoveries that continue to be found at the bottom of a reservoir with record low water levels. Our conversation with former Attorney General Eric Holder about his voting rights fight with the midterm primaries heating up. But up next, how fentanyl helped our Bob Woodruff after he was nearly killed in Iraq 16 years ago. But why that same drug nearly destroyed the life of the medic who helped save Bob's life. Another installment of our series, Poisoned, is coming up.
With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any place else. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir, America's #1 most watched newscast, now streaming on ABC News Live.
It was a scary time in the 70s. You had multiple bodies showing up in Los Angeles.
There were so many murders happening. You had to have a name for it, serial killer.
There was a human head in there. This was premeditated evil.
We have this clock. This person is going to do this again.
It's me against the killer. Who's going to win?
We'll see who laughs last.
What came next was unlike anything they had ever seen.
Admit it. These days, what you need to know
seems to change just about every day.
What is it that you really want to know, need to know?
To help you not just get through your day,
but to make the most of it. Feel smarter.
Feel better.
Feel happier.
Well, how about a third hour of Good Morning America?
GMA 3, what you need to know. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
It's all about you.
The hottest views in daytime are happening right here.
We talk about things on this show that people don't talk about.
That I can't wait to see. Honest takes from strong women.
We need all hands on deck, and we need it right now.
This is the time to speak out. Unafraid to get real.
We stick by our points of view.
We're all seeing it differently, and that's the beauty of The View.
And that's why the most watched #1 daytime talk show is The View. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
Is that the gun?
That's not the gun.
What is it? I won't ask you again then. Are you a Nazi?
The deeper you go into the black markets,
you could be putting your life at risk.
the darker it gets.
Why hasn't anyone come out and spoken?
It's about the money. That's why we do it.
Trafficked. New episodes Wednesdays at 9 on National Geographic.
Take America's #1 news with you anywhere you go, anytime, free. Download the ABC News app now. Breaking news, exclusives, 24/7. There for you with one touch. The ABC News app. Download it now. America's #1 news, ABC News. Most watched, most trusted, and streaming live to you anytime, anywhere, and free. This is ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news, free to you 24/7. Watch America's #1 news whenever you want it, wherever you are, anytime. ABC News Live, streaming live and free on all platforms.
Orlando authorities are investigating the shooting death of former NBA player and college star Adrian Payne. Police say that he was shot and killed at a home early this morning, but they say the suspected shooter remained at the scene and is cooperating with them. Payne played 4 seasons in the NBA. No motive has been released for the shooting. Tonight, we bring you a story of healing and addiction that hits especially close to home for all of us here at ABC News. When our own Bob Woodruff was injured covering the war in Iraq back in 2006, the powerful painkiller fentanyl was used to treat his nearly fatal injuries. But in a remarkable twist, one of the Army medics who helped to save Bob's life would later become addicted to opioids himself and nearly overdosed on fentanyl. Tonight, we bring you Bob's conversation with that former medic on his journey from addiction to recovery. It's the 4th part of our series, Poisoned, America's Fentanyl Crisis.
3 men are dead after a possible fentanyl overdose.
While the growing fears and fatalities caused by fentanyl have gathered more and more attention,
another case of a fentanyl overdose.
What rarely makes the news is the positive side of fentanyl when it's prescribed as originally intended. It was created in 1959 for chronic pain, anesthesia, sedation, 50 to 100 times more potent than morphine.
Do you think there's going to be more mechanized?
While covering the war in Iraq, fentanyl became part of my life.
To Baghdad. Bob Woodruff, ABC News.
In January of 2006, my cameraman Doug Vogt and I were embedded with the U.S. and Iraqi forces, reporting about the status of the war in an area where insurgents were detonating more and more bombs. While traveling from village to village, an explosion nearly killed us. And after we were rushed to the Baghdad hospital, this is the only video taken, shot by a member of the medical team with his cell phone. This is the only photo of me in this emergency room, and this blurry video shows one of the medics who saved me, Sergeant Dave Williamson.
I was badly hit, and there you were. You helped to save my life.
Well, I've talked to several people that, I've met after I've treated them, and it's, you saved my life, and I just don't see it that way.
Do you have any idea how many people you did help?
My forward surgical team, we had 1,804 trauma resuscitations.
Suddenly that ID exploded, we were knocked out. What do you remember?
I remember everything. You and Doug came into the trauma bay.
Doug Vogt, my cameraman with me.
And Doug was doing a whole lot better than you were. And the unit that I was with, it was just such a well-oiled machine. And we knew that you were in serious, dire straits. We just needed to get a tube in your throat and have you breathing off machines. But from there, we went to CT, because that was going to be the determining factor of, do we let you go and just provide comfort measures, or do we work it?
Let me go? There's a good chance?
There was a very solid chance. You actually had a body bag on the underside of your stretcher.
And normally they don't put that under there unless there's a...
The only time that we did that would be if a patient had moved from one area to another and they weren't going to come out of the second area.
Given the severity of my injuries, he injected me with multiple drugs, including his most powerful painkiller, fentanyl.
Our go-to drug was fentanyl. And so at the time, the fentanyl that we had was given in micrograms, and it was in glass vials.
You knew exactly how much fentanyl was in there. Mm-hmm. You had complete control over it, and you knew that this was the kind of opioid that would kill my pain.
Yes,
yes. So this is what it's meant for.
It's what it's meant for, yes. But yeah, we had a very solid understanding of what it is, what it's capable of doing, and also how dangerous it was.
But when the war began to wind down and before the U.S. withdrew from Iraq, Dave left the military and, like many others, was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder.
There's a lot that people deal with, you know, and you're looking for anything to numb the pain, even though it may not be physical pain. It's something that just doesn't go away. It just stays with you and just gnaws, and it's, you know, you're trying to emotionally cope with everything that happened over the course of 18 months for, you know, 12 to 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. You don't have time to deal with it then, and now you're out of the Army, and now you've got time to process it.
Now at home, the same man who had used fentanyl to save me ultimately became addicted to fentanyl himself. And like so many others, it started with prescription painkillers given to him after surgery.
They prescribed me Percocet. I rifled through this Percocet like it was, you know, nobody's business. And then I just wanted to do it more and more and more and more and more. And then I had a very close friend of mine introduce me to Oxycontin. And then I started doing Oxycontin, and then I started doing more Oxycontin, and then...
You're buying this on the street.
Mm-hmm. It's this sense of loneliness, of solitude, and before you know it, it's spiraled out of control.
That spiral descended from painkillers to meth and heroin, all the way to the bottom.
So it was right here where you were injecting me with fentanyl to save me. And I look over your left elbow right there on your arm. What is that?
Yes. So my addiction had gotten really bad to the point where I was an intravenous drug addict, and I missed my vein completely.
They had to remove a whole bunch of infection out of there.
They told me that had I come in the following day, I would have lost my arm. And it was incredibly painful. And the worst part is, it didn't even stop me from being an addict, you know? I thought, okay, well, I'll never do that again. Well, you know, naturally, I can't, you know, but I just found another vein.
Despite his struggles, he married his high school sweetheart, Jessica. But addiction had found her, too.
I had a pretty bad car wreck when I was 17, and I was prescribed pain meds, and it kind of escalated from there. And then Oxycontins came around, and that was a huge problem for me. That was really when things got pretty bad.
As Oxy got harder to get and more expensive, they turned to the streets together.
Well, you know, I know plenty of people that are on heroin, so let me just try heroin, you know? And so I felt better on heroin than I felt on Oxycontin, and that cost me 1/10 of the money, you know? And so next thing you know, you're hooked on heroin. But heroin is just, it just spirals really fast.
And then fentanyl entered their lives. The two of them had been taking opioids for years.
We were using pretty heavily and had gone to get some pills.
But one night, what they didn't know is this time those pills were laced with fentanyl.
We're sitting in this parking lot, and David did his and immediately was, you know, nodding out and was in and out. And I thought, wow, he did too much. Then I started throwing up, and I thought, oh my gosh, I did too much. But I knew that I hadn't done more than what I normally do, and I was sick. I mean, it was scary. It was very scary.
Did you know there was fentanyl in that one?
I did not. I knew something was different, that it was too strong. It's dangerous. It's scary.
Is it the most dangerous?
It's the most dangerous drug I've ever come across.
While still using, they had their first son, who at age 3 witnessed what they had been hiding for years.
One of the things that was a turning point was my 3-year-old walked into my room when I was shooting up, and I screamed at him to shut the door. And I mean, is this what I'm gonna do when he's 30? I knew that there were resources out there, and I knew if there were people that had beaten their addictions, and I waited until I ran out of money. And when I ran out of money, I went to a methadone clinic. I got seen by a doctor, and I started the program.
Since I was rushed out of Baghdad, ultimately to the U.S., we did not talk again until a decade later, when Dave watched this story on ABC.
It was 10 years ago that Bob and Doug were badly injured by...
It was on a Sunday, and it was on Martha Raddatz's show.
The IED went up.
She was doing a story about your 10-year anniversary. And so I turned the volume up, and
Bob, I just want
they were talking about you. And I rewound it, and I said, oh my God. I said, yeah, that's me.
That's you.
And yeah.
Welcome, everybody.
Not long after he helped me back in 2006, my family and I started a foundation to help other veterans wounded in the wars.
Yeah, they just blown around from town to town.
So in 2018, Dave and Jessica joined fellow veterans and families for the Stand Up for Heroes fundraising event.
Yeah, we're back into the dirt of this hard land.
Dave is now a specialist, tracking down high-performance engine parts for exclusive or often rare cars.
Do you ever use fluid dampers, or do you?
They now have 3 sons. Jessica is a kindergarten teacher, and with the help of therapy and support groups, today Dave and Jessica say they have stopped using opioids. Their hope is to keep drugs out of their lives forever.
Do you have any more desire still to try it?
I mean, once you're an addict, you're always an addict. It's just that we don't have the want or the need or the desire to chase it anymore. We both see how our lives were then, and we see where our lives are now, and we like where we're at now. We know how slippery of a slope it is. So even if we did try it again, hey, just one more time. One more time, is it gonna be one more time? It's going to be, how are we gonna get out of this again?
Do you think they'll be proud of you as being those that actually decided to give this up for them?
I would hope so.
Yeah.
We're proud of ourselves.
Yeah. If any of my children are proud of me or proud of their mother, then at least one of us did something right.
Such powerful reporting there by Bob Woodruff. Our thanks to him. Still ahead here on Prime, the sexual assault trial for celebrity chef Mario Batali now underway. We have the details. The longtime lawmakers battling it out after the state of West Virginia lost a congressional seat. Why some believe this race is an even bigger signal of the power of the Trump endorsement than what we saw in past weeks. And the new plan to give low-income families access to high-speed internet. We take a look by the numbers. But first, our tweet of the day, the Avatar 2 trailer is now out.
The deeper you go into black markets, the darker it gets.
Trafficked, Wednesdays at 9 on National Geographic.
Right now, with so much at stake, Sunday mornings, this is the place. Taking on all the tough questions. Straightforward reporting. No spin, no hype, no bull. Thank you for making ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos the #1 Sunday morning news show versus the competition.
Welcome to This Week.
It was a scary time.
In the 70s, you had multiple bodies showing up in Los Angeles.
There were so many murders happening. You had to have a name for it, serial killer.
There was a human head in there. This was premeditated evil.
We have this clock. This person is going to do this again.
It's me against the killer. Who's going to win?
We'll see who laughs last.
What came next was unlike anything they had ever seen.
Is that the gun?
That's not the gun.
What is it? I won't ask you again then. Are you a Nazi?
The deeper you go into the black market,
you could be putting your life at risk.
the darker it gets.
Why hasn't anyone come out and spoken?
It's about the money. That's why we do it.
Trafficked. New episodes Wednesdays at 9 on National Geographic.
These days, with so much going on, it's hard to keep up.
While others are recapping yesterday's headlines,
We're bringing you the right now.
This is the busy border crossing. Steel barricades, another strike.
The right now look at the day ahead, how it affects you and your family.
Record high gas prices.
The threat of cyber warfare.
Is peace possible?
World News Now beginning at 2 a.m. Eastern, followed by America This Morning.
America's #1 early morning news.
Streaming here on ABC News Live.
Take America's #1 news with you anywhere you go, anytime, free. Download the ABC News app now. Breaking news, exclusives, 24/7. There for you with one touch. The ABC News app. Download it now.
I risked my life. If I was caught, they would have put a bullet in my head.
That would have been one of the most deadly acts of domestic terrorism ever in the United States.
He put himself in jeopardy for us.
Welcome back, everyone. The Biden administration and major internet providers have taken a big step toward bridging the digital divide, which was certainly made clear to us during the pandemic. Let's take a look by the numbers. No more than $30. That's the cost for high-speed internet for low-wage earners under the Affordable Connectivity Program announced today by President Biden, part of the $1 trillion infrastructure package that Congress passed last year. Some 20 internet service providers, including AT&T, Comcast, and Verizon, have all agreed to offer the discounted high-speed service to low-income Americans, with service areas covering more than 80% of the U.S. population, according to the White House. And experts estimate that 48 million households, or 40% of the country, will qualify for the new program based on income levels. Some 11.5 million households have already signed up to claim federal subsidies of up to $30 off monthly bills, which, when combined with the lower pricing, will cover the full cost of broadband access for those who sign up with one of the 20 companies. The infrastructure bill included $14 billion for those broadband subsidies and another $65 billion to improve the country's broadband network. That's a boost for rural communities where just 7 in 10 adults reported having broadband access at home in 2021, according to the Pew Research Center. That's lower than rates for urban and suburban households. And we still have lots to get to here on Prime tonight. Our weather teams are tracing the wildfire emergency across 5 states. And it's not just stocks that have been taking a beating. We'll look at how cryptocurrencies have been faring in recent days, too. And spoiler alert, not well. But first, we'll look at our top trending stories on abcnews.com.
With so much at stake in our world right now, we wanted to thank you for your trust and for making ABC News America's #1 news.
And thank you for making ABC News Live America's #1 streaming news.
Now streaming on ABC News Live 2020. True crime, cinematic, real-life drama, stunning, the unthinkable. Follow the clues, The Hunt. True crime 2020. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
National parks are incredibly safe places, but crime will happen.
Hey, my wife had fallen. She's in really critical condition.
At that time, I thought it was just a tragic accident.
There's still a lot of questions we need to ask.
There were small things that didn't totally add up.
This is 2 lives for Harold that have died now. I was shocked. Something's not right.
Admit it. These days, what you need to know
seems to change just about every day.
What is it that you really want to know, need to know?
To help you not just get through your day,
but to make the most of it. Feel smarter.
Feel better.
Feel happier.
Well, how about a 3rd hour of Good Morning America?
GMA 3, what you need to know. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
It's all about you.
I know what happened, and I'm not guilty.
Why the fascination with criminal trials? Figure out what's really out there.
She revealed she had murdered his family.
I know in my heart they did this.
It's the time of suspicion.
The ending's really tough.
You don't know whether truth is going to be difficult to find unless you try to find it.
America's #1 news, ABC News. Most watched, most trusted, and streaming live to you anytime, anywhere, and free. This is ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news, free to you 24/7. Watch America's #1 news whenever you want it, wherever you are, anytime. ABC News Live, streaming live and free on all platforms.
Today, President Biden again making it clear the United States stands with Ukraine.
The cost of the fight is not cheap, but caving to aggression is even more costly. That's why we're staying in this.
He signed the Ukraine Democracy Defense Lend-Lease Act, which temporarily waives certain requirements put in place related to lending or leasing defense weapons to Ukraine and other Eastern European countries. It comes as the Pentagon announced another $150 million in security assistance for Ukraine. Earlier, President Biden and allies announcing new sanctions on Russia, promising to cut off imports of Russian oil, sanctioning on Russian state TV networks, and imposing a ban on consulting and other services that support Russia's war. President Vladimir Putin held a Victory Day celebration in Russia's Red Square, commemorating Russia's victory over Nazi Germany in World War II, where he tried to justify invading his neighboring country by falsely telling Russians they were once again fighting Nazis in Ukraine.
Well, celebrity chef Mario Batali's pandemic-delayed sexual misconduct trial is underway in Boston. A woman who accused Batali of kissing and groping her while attempting to take a selfie testified today. Batali's lawyer argued the assault never happened and that the accuser has a financial incentive to lie. Today, Batali waived his right to a jury trial and opted instead to have a judge decide his fate.
High winds fanning the flames of a massive fire in New Mexico. The Calf Canyon and Hermit's Peak fire combining weeks ago, now burning in an area bigger than Chicago.
We decided to stay and take care of our homes, our structures, and take care of the neighbors for looting or whatever reason.
Nearly 1,700 firefighters battling the state's second largest fire, what the National Weather Service is calling a dangerous, long-duration critical fire weather event. Firefighting planes skimming across the lake to refill with water.
We've done everything we can so far and are continuing to do everything we can to stop this spread.
Mothers stay inside of shelters.
I can see you getting emotional. What are you thinking about right now? What's going through your mind?
My family. I'm worried about my family. I'm worried about everyone back home, and I just want everyone to be safe.
More human remains discovered in Lake Mead outside Las Vegas. 2 snorkelers finding teeth and bones in an area that water used to cover. Boaters on the lake found a body inside a barrel last week. And with reservoir levels dropping amid a historic drought in the western U.S., police say more bodies will probably pop up.
You might have noticed cryptocurrency investors in a sour mood lately as the coin's value have largely plummeted. Bitcoin prices fell 10% today, down 20% in the past week. Now, value just below $31,000 a coin. That's half its record value from July of last year. Many altcoins like Ethereum, Binance, Solana, and Cardano were also down about 15% in the past week. So what gives? Cryptocurrencies are proving just as vulnerable as stocks and bonds to concerns about rising interest rates, inflation worries, and talks of a possible economic slowdown. NASA wants to send nudes into space. At least they're TV friendly. The naked man and woman sure look happy, but it's part of a very serious proposal from researchers. The hope that aliens will intercept this diagram written in binary code that will be blasted out to a cluster of old stars thousands of light years away. The project, dubbed A Beacon in the Galaxy, would also include a drawing of a world map, a diagram about gravity, and of course, the 2 pixelated images of the man, woman, and a drawing of DNA. Apparently, this isn't even the first time NASA has tried this, sending out naked illustrations in the 70s. Because we all know, if you send a nude and hear nothing back, sending another one is just what an alien wants.
Welcome back. Tomorrow, voters will pick between two sitting members of Congress in a West Virginia primary, one of 5 races nationwide this year, pitting 2 incumbents against each other. That's because redistricting following the 2020 census has shrunk the state's congressional count from 3 seats to 2, leaving 2 incumbent Republicans vying for the loyalties of West Virginia's Republican voters. And tomorrow's race is also another test of former President Trump's sway over his party. ABC's Rachel Scott explains.
The GOP nomination in West Virginia's 2nd District is giving former President Donald Trump another chance to tighten his hold on the Republican Party.
This is America. This is our democracy. The challenges we face right now is we can't have a low turnout.
It's important we win these primaries to have real Republicans that'll fight like Donald Trump did for the values that we all share.
With West Virginia losing a seat in congressional redistricting, conservative Congressman David McKinley and Alex Mooney are reintroducing themselves to voters. McKinley, a 75-year-old 6-term congressman and West Virginia native, is selling his record and his vote for the bipartisan infrastructure law. It will bring in billions of dollars for internet access, road and bridge repairs to one of the poorest states in the country. But 50-year-old Mooney, a 4-term congressman who once served in the Maryland State Senate, has a big name in his corner, Donald Trump, who won 70% of the vote in West Virginia in 2020.
We have to make sure that we vote for this great gentleman, a friend of mine, and really a warrior in every sense of the way.
Bravo!
Trump endorsing Mooney the day President Biden signed the infrastructure bill into law, a bill Trump and many Republicans opposed. McKinley has called his opponent a political prostitute, saying that Mooney moved from Maryland to West Virginia just to get elected to Congress.
Maryland Senator Alex Mooney, out for himself, not West Virginia.
And he's touted the support of West Virginia's Republican Governor Jim Justice and the state's Democratic Senator Joe Manchin.
I just know who he is and what he's about and why he's doing what he's doing. He's basically all about West Virginia. I think he'd do a great job. He's been a great colleague to work with.
Mooney, who voted against certifying the 2020 election results, has attacked McKinley for voting for a bill to create an independent commission to investigate the Capitol attack and called McKinley a Republican in name only.
Rhino David McKinley lying again.
Trump brought Mooney on stage at his rally in nearby Pennsylvania on Friday.
Alex Mooney. Alex is in a big race. That's one of the races they keep saying, is Mooney going to win because Mooney is being backed by Trump? And he's got an opponent, but I think Mooney's going to do real well. You're running against somebody that you should beat easily. You better beat him easily or I'm going to look very bad. They're going to say Trump has lost it.
The winner of Tuesday's race is all but guaranteed to carry the deep red state in November and to help determine the strength of Trump's endorsement power in the Republican primaries.
This is going to be an interesting test to see how much power does former President Trump have in a state where he was so popular.
Trump's last endorsement of author J.D. Vance propelled the candidate to victory in Ohio's GOP Senate primary just last week. But he's also distanced himself from other candidates who haven't done so well, pulling his support for Congressman Mo Brooks in Alabama's Senate primary ahead of the voting there. And he faces another test in Pennsylvania's upcoming Senate primary, a messy race where he has endorsed former television personality Dr. Oz. So as West Virginians head to the polls in this deeply red state, Trump's sway may also be on the ballot.
Our thanks to Rachel Scott. While the U.S. has come a long way on voting rights and representing democracy since the time when only white men could vote, former U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder has been working in recent years against what he's called a concerted effort underway to restrict the right to vote for so many Americans. In his new book, Our Unfinished March, A History, a Crisis, a Plan, Holder gives readers a historical perspective into how far we've come as a nation and how much further we still have to go, along with his prescriptions for reform. Mr. Holder, we thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to delve into the book in just a moment, but first, just like to get your opinion as far as the draft that was leaked from the Supreme Court on Roe v. Wade. Of course, a central theme to the book, you talk about how democracy must reflect the will of the people. If Roe v. Wade is overturned, it would not reflect the will of the majority of people. And so where does that leave democracy?
You know, I think that's interesting. All the polls seem to indicate by almost a 2-to-1 margin that people are not in favor of Roe versus Wade being overruled. I would think that the opinion that you saw, the language that you saw, is not likely to appear in the opinion that ultimately comes from the court. That language, I think, was overwrought. It was caustic. It was unnecessary. The question will be whether or not you'll still have 5 justices, however, who will vote to overturn Roe versus Wade. If that happens, I think that's going to be a seismic thing in this country. There are going to be a substantial number of people, men as well as women, who are not going to be in favor of what the court has done. The court has ignored precedent. The justices who will vote for it are going against what they said they were going to do during their confirmation hearings. And I think that it will have an impact on the legitimacy of the court.
And you spend a lot of time in the book talking about the need for change for the Supreme Court to basically be overhauled. You'd like to see more justices added to the court. You'd like to see those lifetime term limits limited. Do you feel that these are realistic goals, given just how divided we are as a nation right now?
Yeah, I think I've laid out a pretty expansive number of things that I think we need to do in order to save our democracy, which I think is under attack. But you know what? That's what we do as Americans. We do big things. We did, the New Deal, the New Frontier, the Great Society. And I think one of the failings of our society in recent years has been that we've not had this vision of looking at our society, trying to make the necessary changes. So I talk about, let's reform the Supreme Court. Let's do something with regard to the filibuster. Let's do something with regard to partisan gerrymandering. There's a whole range of things that sounds kind of almost impossible to do. But if you can't imagine doing it, if you can't imagine the possibility of success, it'll never happen. I'm actually confident that if we put our minds to it and get the American people, regular American people involved in this effort, that we can pull this off.
And I want to quote right from the book, because you talk about in 2013, the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act, opening the floodgates for suppression. That ruling will go down as one of the most flawed Supreme Court decisions in history, and it's a case to which I just so happen to be a party, Shelby County versus Holder. And you go further to talk about Chief Justice John Roberts, who said that the discrimination that made the Voting Rights Act necessary in the first place had been overcome. It was no longer necessary. And in particular, you talk about just how detrimental this was with regard to Section 5. Explain why you feel that that was so harmful.
Yeah, I think that was a very flawed opinion. The notion that the nation has changed, as Chief Justice Roberts said, and that is there's no question about that. The nation has changed. I'm a former black attorney general. That is a sign of progress, and yet we're not yet at the place where we need to be as a nation. And if you look at what happened after the Shelby County case, not months later, not weeks later, but hours later, states started to put in place these restrictive voter ID mechanisms to try to keep people away from the polls. And what started back in 2013 has only blossomed since that time. That was an extremely destructive opinion when it comes to the rights of many Americans to get to the polls and to vote in an easy way, or at least to vote in the same way that their fellow citizens do.
You started the book talking about and telling the story of Jimmy Lee Jackson.
Yeah.
Why'd you do that? Also, somebody who you mentioned his story on the 50th anniversary of the March on Selma.
Jimmy Lee Jackson is one of those people whose name is kind of forgotten to history, and yet he is a central part of this whole march towards a more fair America. He's a guy who saw, I guess back in 1962, his grandfather attempt to register to vote, was not able to. It energized him and made him a civil rights advocate. He was there in 1965 in Alabama, 3 years later, fighting for voter registration. As a result of a demonstration, he was shot, he was killed. Dr. King comes and eulogizes him in 1965, and the determination is made at that point to come up with a march from Selma to Montgomery, which led to the confrontation with John Lewis on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And so all of these things are connected. And that's one of the things we try to do in the book, to talk about these forgotten Americans.
And with regard to voting rights, you describe this as the most urgent political struggle. Why do you feel that is?
Because the vote is the thing that controls everything else. If you care about reproductive rights, if you care about the foreign policy of this nation, if you care about gun safety, climate, all of that comes down to who serves in office, and all of that is a direct function of who gets to vote, how you get to vote, how easy it is to vote, who actually counts the votes. So, voting has been and always will be something that is important to the American experiment. And we go through the book to show that there's always been a constant struggle about who will have a chance to vote. I mean, in the beginning part of this country, white men who did not have property, they were the first people to fight for voting rights. Then women fought to get voting rights, and then African Americans, then young people. Voting age was lowered to 18. We've been on an arc that until recent years has been to expand the number of people, number of categories of people who had the ability to vote. And what I'm concerned about is that in the present day, we seem to be restricting the ability of too many people to vote.
Mr. Holder, such a pleasure to have you here in studio with us. Thank you so much. Our Unfinished March, A History, A Crisis, A Plan is available tomorrow wherever books are sold. Those sky-high gas prices just keep going up. Gas Buddy reported the national average for regular unleaded is now $4.33 a gallon. That's higher than 19 cents than a month ago. The cost of diesel, which trucks, trains, and ships rely on, is at $5.52 a gallon, meaning the price for groceries and other products may rise even more. Experts believe this uptick will continue through the Memorial Day weekend. And before we go, there is a service dog in Ukraine that's been singled out for a special honor by Ukraine's president. His name is Patron. But as our Will Gans explains, countless civilians say he should more appropriately be called patron saint.
It's not every day that you see a dog giving his own acceptance speech. It's also not every day that a dog is honored by the president. But then again, Patron is not your everyday dog. This Jack Russell Terrier is credited with finding over 200 explosives in Ukraine, left behind by Russian forces. The 2-year-old pup in his protective vest, teaming up with human bomb disposal workers to clear landmines and shells in Chernihiv. Patron honored in a ceremony on Sunday by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Patron, whose name means ammo in Ukrainian, also acts as a mascot of the country's state emergency services and has garnered quite a following, inspiring fan art and crafts. The State Emergency Services of Ukraine saying of Patron's heroism, it motivates us not to give up, no matter how hard it is to keep the bar high and to fight with new strength, knowing how many people are still waiting for help and how many people believe in us. President Zelensky saying in Sunday's ceremony in Kyiv that Patron is especially beloved by children, adding that the pup plays a crucial role in helping them understand safety rules in areas with mine threats. There was no mention, however, of Patron's impressive tug-of-war skills.
What a cutie. Our thanks to Will for that. And finally, the image of the day. This is a limited edition Snake Island Ukrainian stamp that commemorates the moment a soldier defiantly told a Russian warship to go expletive themselves when ordered to surrender. The stamp proved so popular in Ukraine that they had to stop selling them in post offices and only online. Another symbol of Ukraine's strong response to Russian aggression. And that is our show for this hour. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thanks so much for streaming with us. Next hour, the baby formula shortage leaving more parents scrambling. And our conversation with actor Omar Epps about his new project where he plays a formerly incarcerated man trying to turn his life around. Stay with us.
America's #1 news, ABC News. Most watched, most trusted, and streaming live to you anytime, anywhere, and free. This is ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news, free to you 24/7. Watch America's #1 news whenever you want it, wherever you are, anytime. ABC News Live, streaming live and free on all platforms. More Americans choose ABC News, America's #1 news source. Take America's #1 news with you, anywhere you go, anytime, free. Download the ABC News app now. Breaking news, exclusives, 24/7. There for you with one touch. The ABC News app. Download it now.
The deeper you go into black markets, the darker it gets.
Traffic, Wednesdays at 9 on National Geographic.
He thought he was God.
He's now one of the most vilified men in the world.
He is the everyman. Zelensky is the Tom Hanks of Ukraine.
The fact that a little nice Jewish boy is 5'7" is showing up this KGB agent in the Kremlin.
What do you say to Americans who see Russia and you not only as a rival, but an unfriendly adversary?
Two men at war.
Which Vladimir will take over. The world is not going to be the same.
Christopher Steele,
the guy who picked a fight with two presidents, and he's lived to tell the tale.
That now infamous dossier.
Supposedly a tape showing prostitutes hired by Donald Trump urinating on a bed, and would be quite a tape if it in fact existed.
I said take out the PP tape.
It quickly became a question of how much of this was accurate.
This is the stuff of movies.
A lot of this is the stuff of movies. A story of epic proportions.
Phony stuff.
It's a bunch of crap.
It changed history.
Hey there, I'm Lindsay Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. We're monitoring several developments here at ABC News at this hour. On Wall Street, the stock slide accelerated today. After 6 weeks of losses, the Dow lost 2% more today, dropping to its lowest level this year. Tech stocks leading the losses. Inflation among investors' top concerns ahead of a new government report expected on Wednesday. Tonight, authorities in Orlando are investigating the shooting death of former NBA player and college basketball star Adrian Payne. Authorities say he was shot and killed at a home early this morning. The suspected shooter remained at the scene, is cooperating with police. Adrian Payne was a first-round draft pick for the Atlanta Hawks in 2014. He played 4 seasons in the NBA with several teams. And an anonymous donor has cleared tuition bills for students graduating from Wiley College. The donor is paying about $300,000 in debt. More than 100 graduates at the historically black college in East Texas were told during their commencement ceremony. After a week-and-a-half manhunt spanning multiple states for an escaped suspected murderer and a former Department of Corrections employee that's accused of facilitating the escape, it's now over. The sheriff in Alabama making the announcement late today. Elwin Lopez reports.
Tonight, authorities announcing an end to the 11-day manhunt for capital murder suspect Casey White and former corrections officer Vicki White.
Casey White and Vicki White are in custody. Casey White surrendered. This has ended a very long and stressful and challenging week and a half.
The duo captured after a tip, that pursuit ending in a wreck.
Vicki White has been transported to the hospital.
This just hours after confirming a new sighting, releasing these images showing a Ford F-150 pickup truck believed to have been used by the duo. It was taken almost a week ago on May 3rd at a car wash in Indiana, about 175 miles away from Middle Tennessee, where authorities believe the duo ditched another vehicle on the same day they went missing. And today, new charges of forgery and identity theft filed against Vicki White. The sheriff says she bought that Ford Edge with an alias. The 17-year veteran last seen in this video checking out of a hotel moments before she left the detention center with that inmate, all under the guise of a court appointment that never existed.
Our thanks to Elwin for that. Overseas tonight, Russia was among the countries marking Victory Day in Europe today, a celebration of the triumph over the Nazis in World War II. Russia's Vladimir Putin did not signal victory in Ukraine in a speech today, but he also did not signal an escalation there. He did use the holiday and the Kremlin's show of force to falsely claim the war in Ukraine continues the anti-Nazi fight, calling it justified. ABC's Ian Pannell reports in from Ukraine for us tonight.
Tonight, Putin using the massive parade in Red Square as a rallying cry for his war in Ukraine. The annual spectacle commemorates the Soviet victory over the Nazis, but in his speech, Putin used a war of necessity in the past to justify a war of choice today, falsely accusing America, NATO and Kyiv of provoking the conflict. The Russian leader telling his forces in Ukraine,
Вы сражаетесь за родину.
You're fighting for the motherland, for its future, so no one forgets the lessons of the Second World War. But with so many troops tied up in Ukraine, this was a smaller parade than normal. No flyby of fighter jets, bad weather blamed. Many feared Putin would double down, escalate the war, announce a military draft even. But instead, he repeated old lies about fighting Nazis in Ukraine.
Не дамо її привласнити.
And in his own Victory Day address released today, a defiant President Zelensky walking the streets of Kyiv, declaring Russia wouldn't win. Still, innocent civilians are dying. In an eastern Ukrainian village, more than 60 people are feared dead after Russians destroyed a school serving as a shelter. In the northeast, less than 20 miles from the northern border with Russia, Putin's war is going in the wrong direction. Village after village is being reclaimed by dogged Ukrainian troops.
This entire area is littered with the debris of Russia's war. There are tanks, armoured personnel carriers, there are a couple of dead Russian soldiers up there, and the air is thick with the stench of decomposition. And this is what happened to their tanks, and this is what Putin's victory looks like.
Hello, Yuri. Dobry dzień. Yuri's a highly decorated hero of World War II. The medals on his chest speak to the battles he fought alongside his Russian comrades against the Nazis. He can't find words for what they're doing now. Russia shells his city almost daily with rockets and missiles. His apartment block has been hit, but Yuri refuses to leave. Yuri says he's promised himself he'll stay alive until Ukraine wins this war. It'd be the second miraculous victory in one long lifetime.
Our thanks to Ian for that. Now to the pandemic. Tonight, new numbers show the rate of breakthrough cases leading to death is on the rise. It comes as new cases are up more than 20% across the country and at least 10% in 45 states and territories, including right here in the Northeast. But health experts warn the infection numbers are likely even much higher because so many people are testing at home or not testing at all. Here's ABC's Eva Pilgrim.
Tonight, the U.S. nearing a grim milestone, 1 million COVID deaths. The National Cathedral tolling the funeral bell 1,001 times to remember the lives lost. More than 997,000 people have died from COVID in this country. Experts expect we will cross the 1 million mark within the next week. And tonight, new COVID cases climbing. Nearly the entire country, 45 states and territories are seeing at least a 10% increase in COVID infections. The current hotspot, the Northeast. Boston officials recommending but not yet mandating a return to masks indoors, as some parts of the city are now considered high risk.
We are in a time where we're learning to live with COVID.
In New York City, the transmission rate up 75% since last month, the highest level since the Omicron surge in January. The mayor monitoring the spread as he considers a return to the mask and vaccine mandates.
While we've seen the surge in cases, we're not seeing that correlated impact in mortality. The challenge we have is going forward, especially into the summer months, where we may see an impact in the South, where we don't have the same level of vaccination and boosting and testing.
71-year-old Shep Shove experienced a breakthrough infection. He's been fully vaxxed and boosted, but 12 days ago tested positive for COVID.
It just kept getting worse for another couple of days, and then it stopped getting worse.
He says Paxlovid helped keep him out of the hospital.
Yeah, what would it have been like if I hadn't had 3 vaccines and the Paxlovid? So I have to think it would have been pretty bad.
So many crediting Paxlovid to their recovery. Our thanks to Eva for that. Now to the battle over abortion as Senate Democrats prepare for a vote to protect abortion rights, a vote that is expected to fail. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell is now suggesting Republicans could take up a nationwide abortion ban if his party reclaims Congress. Here's ABC's senior White House correspondent Mary Bruce.
After a weekend when thousands took to the streets rallying for abortion rights, some gathering outside the homes of Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh and Chief Justice John Roberts. Tonight, security around the justices is stepping up. The U.S. Marshals now involved in protecting the members of the court after that leaked draft opinion indicated they're preparing to overturn Roe v. Wade. It comes as the top Republican in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, is indicating overturning Roe could be just the beginning, that if Republicans gain control of Congress, they could pass a federal ban on abortion. McConnell saying if the leaked opinion became the final opinion, legislative bodies, not only at the state level but at the federal level, certainly could legislate in that area. Adding, I don't think it's much secret where Senate Republicans stand on that issue. Today, we took that to the White House.
How at risk does the administration believe the U.S. is to completely outlawing abortion?
I think we're at serious risk. You noted Mitch McConnell and other Republicans in Congress are talking about a national ban on a woman's right to choose.
The White House warning Republicans could try to go even further, possibly banning some forms of contraception. If Roe is overturned, 26 states would quickly move to severely restrict access to abortion or ban it outright. 13 have already passed so-called trigger laws that would ban the procedure the moment Roe is struck down. Now, a number of Democrat-led states like New York and Connecticut are exploring ways to assist women seeking help. And today, Chicago's mayor announced funding to help women from other states who cross into Illinois to get an abortion.
These dollars will go to support transportation, lodging, follow-up care, and if necessary, the safe and legal procedure of abortion.
Our thanks to Mary Bruce. And now to the nationwide shortage of infant formula. 3 common brands have now been pulled off the shelves. So what can parents do at this point? Here's ABC's Ariel Reshef.
Tonight, that critical nationwide shortage of baby formula.
It's definite panic.
Pandemic supply chain issues compounded by a major voluntary recall back in February of 3 popular brands manufactured by Abbott. The company pulling those products after 4 infants became ill and 2 died, saying after reviewing all data, it does not believe their facility is the likely source of infection. But families facing the dramatic ripple effects. In April, 40% of the national baby formula inventory was out of stock. New mom Leslyn Hollub's 3-month-old son Jack was born a preemie and requires specialized formula.
It's kind of a mess out there. I check all of them, Target, Walmart, Amazon, Gerber, every day just to see if it is there.
Shelves in some stores empty.
There's only a few manufacturers that are making the entire supply we see on grocery store and pharmacy shelves. And if one of those is not meeting demand, there is a bottleneck.
Our thanks
and
to
Abbott
Ariel.
telling ABC News it is doing everything it can to address the shortage. The White House weighing in tonight, Lindsay, saying the FDA is prioritizing making more formula available. Lindsay.
Ariel, thank you. At the forefront of a national conversation right now is motherhood and parenting, and often overlooked domestic caretakers who do what one author calls, quote, arguably the most essential work humans can do. In Angela Garbez's sophomore book on mothering, Essential Labor, Mothering as a Social Change, she explores society's treatment of parenting, the skill and attention that it takes to care for another life, and what a more equitable community could look like. Angela Garbez joins us now. Angela, thank you so much for being here. You said that you never intended to write this book, but it came to you during the pandemic as you, like many others, worked to balance motherhood in the chaos of that time. Walk us through that journey.
Yeah.
What brought you to writing this book now?
I was hearing all this talk about our essential workers, healthcare workers, sanitation workers, who, yes, are absolutely essential. But I also started thinking, well, what about mothers? What about parents? Because we are all working around the clock right now, nonstop. And with no extra support or any real recognition of that. And that was really the seed for this book.
In your book, you look to history when asking why mothering is considered low-wage labor rather than highly skilled work that is essential, creative, and influential. How does our history impact society's view on mothering today?
Yeah, so I mean, around the world, globally, for centuries, we raised children communally. You know, it was not the home was not the sole province of a mother, and a father was not expected to be financially supportive of a family. It was really capitalism, which created privatized labor, where someone goes out of the home to do quote unquote professional work and earn an individual wage. And because females are able to give birth, it just sort of made it easier to keep them, let's just keep you in the home and raise the next generation of workers. And so what we haven't really reckoned with in America is that our economic system depends on domestic labor as much as it does professional labor.
And you also write that through your work on this book, your definition of mothering began to shift. How so?
I wanted to create a term. Mothering is also a verb as opposed to a noun. It's dynamic, and it includes the many, many, infinite physical acts of care that we are performing for children. And it's a way of inviting people in and recognizing that you don't need to have children, and you certainly don't have to want to have children to look out for them. When we invest in children, when we invest in families, we're really investing in public health and the future of our society.
I have to agree with you. Mothering is not just a verb, it's an action verb, right?
It's a repeated action.
Very involved endlessly. So there has been a child care crisis unfolding in this country, as you know, with parents struggling to find affordable child care as employees leave the industry in search of higher wages. What do you see as some viable solutions for that?
I really think that, I don't want to let the government off the hook here. Individuals and families and communities have been making patchwork solutions. And the truth is that we need health and we need support. We need help. And so what I would love to see is affordable childcare. In Montreal, you can send a child to daycare for $9 a day. And that will make a lot of parents in the U.S.'s jaw drop. We're doing the best we can. Families and communities are doing the best we can, and we need help. So I think, supporting politicians and supporting organizations that are working for affordable childcare is the next step.
Did you say $9 a day? That is just an
$9 a day,
astonishing number.
I know.
Oh my goodness gracious! So
this is possible. I pay $1,300 a month for my child to go to preschool.
Right.
And when you think of it that way, and that's a stretch for me. It is not like other countries understand this. It is not that radical. It really is not. It is just what we have normalized in our society.
You also write that the pandemic revealed that mothering is some of the only truly essential work that humans do. Do you feel that the pandemic has fundamentally changed the value that society places on mothering, or do you think that this shift might have only been temporary?
Well, I don't know that if it's dramatically changed. I think it's exposed things. We all know that when we didn't have people to care for our children, our society shut down. People could not perform their jobs, right? So we see this. I'm hopeful because I have to be hopeful, because otherwise, what's the point? I also think about people who have been through, like my ancestors and throughout history, marginalized people have been figuring out ways to make community and make things work. So they haven't given up, so I'm not going to give up. But I definitely think that I don't want this conversation to go away. Like, we felt the righteous anger of so many mothers, affluent mothers to poor mothers, right? We felt that because we all knew it. And now, as we're all supposed to be returning to the office and going back to normal life, I'm worried that we'll let go of that.
And I think also another thing, mommy guilt is a real thing that we have to discuss as well at some other time. But lastly, I just want to ask you, just news-wise, of course, a major national headline in the past week has been the possibility that the Supreme Court will overturn Roe v. Wade. How do you feel that this could impact motherhood and parenting in this country?
So we know for a fact that 66% of people who have abortions in America are mothers or are already parents. And so we are experts in what the physical cost, the emotional cost, and the financial cost of having children is. So, to me, abortion is an economic justice issue. We know that wealthy people will always be able to access abortion. The people who cannot access abortion are the people who currently cannot access it, poor women of color. And so, we created poverty. Poverty is a man-made situation that we have allowed to flourish in our country. And when you condemn women to motherhood, when you force them into motherhood, you force them into poverty. And our government is telling us that they're okay with leaving people living harder lives than they need to. And so it is really, we should listen to mothers on this.
Angela Garbez, such a pleasure to talk to you. Essential Labor, Mothering as a Social Change comes out tomorrow. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Lindsay.
And still to come, the major announcement from the Queen and what it could signal about her health. We'll be right back.
Bodies showing up in Los Angeles.
There were so many murders happening. We had to have a name for it, serial killer.
There was a human head in there. This was premeditated evil.
We have this clock. This person is going to do this again.
It's me against the killer. Who's going to win?
We'll see who laughs last.
What came next was unlike anything they had ever seen.
America's #1 news, ABC News. Most watched, most trusted, and streaming live to you anytime, anywhere, and free. This is ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news, free to you 24/7. Watch America's #1 news whenever you want it, wherever you are, anytime. ABC News Live, streaming live and free on all platforms.
National parks are incredibly safe places, but crime will happen.
My wife had fallen. She's in really critical condition.
At that time, I thought it was just a tragic accident.
There's still a lot of questions we need to ask.
There were small things that didn't totally add up.
This is 2 lives for Harold that have died now. I was shocked. Something's not right.
Now streaming on ABC News Live 2020. True crime, cinematic, real-life drama, stunning, the unthinkable. Follow the clues. The Hunt. True crime 2020. Now streaming on ABC News Live. Take America's #1 news with you anywhere you go, anytime, free. Download the ABC News app now. Breaking news, exclusives, 24/7. There for you with one touch. The ABC News app. Download it now.
Welcome back. We're tracking several headlines around the world. The Taliban has ordered women in Afghanistan to cover up from head to toe. This is a sharp, hardline pivot that confirmed the worst fears of activists after the Taliban took over last year. The decree says that women should leave the home only when necessary, and male relatives will face punishment for women's dress code violations. The UN says it is deeply concerned with this formal directive. The son of the former Philippines dictator is on his way to becoming the next president of the sprawling archipelago of 110 million people spread out over thousands of islands. According to preliminary results, Fernando Marcos Jr. is set to nearly double the votes of his opponent. Election watchers reported alarming irregularities in voting machines across the country. Queen Elizabeth will not open Parliament tomorrow. She has missed this honor only twice before. The palace says she continues to experience episodic mobility problems. The Queen tested positive for COVID back in February and has kept a light public schedule since then. Joining us now is actor, producer, and author Omar Epps. You've seen Epps in shows such as House, This Is Us, and most recently Power Book 3. And of course, who could forget him in Love and Basketball? In his new film, The Devil You Know, Epps plays a formerly incarcerated man trying to turn his life around with the help of his supportive family. After discovering one of his brothers could have been involved in a horrific crime, his loyalty is put to the test as he finds himself once again entangled with the justice system. Let's take a sneak peek.
So you think that was a smart move? Asking me if it's bad around that you think may have it bad for me.
I need you to know how serious this is.
Look, man, I know you being sober and all gave you a conscience.
Going to jail gave me a conscience. Being sober means I live with it.
Omar Epps, thank you so much for joining us tonight. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
So you not only star in the film, but you're also the executive producer. So what are you most proud of about the movie?
I'm proud about the film, the cast we were able to assemble. I think it's a beautiful piece. It's a tale of morality, brotherhood, redemption, and it's a really, really interesting piece. It's one of those when the audience is watching it, they're yelling back at the screen, and it's an interactive experience.
And the film explores, as you just said, the themes of loyalty and brotherhood within a supportive family unit. You play Marcus, who was formerly incarcerated, and he now has to learn how to re-navigate those relationships. How does the, at times, complicated bond of brotherhood impact your character's journey throughout the film?
Well, I think, like, family is our first tribe, right? It's the tribe you don't necessarily get to choose. You're just born into it. And so my character Marcus has sort of been the quote unquote black sheep of the family. He's been the knucklehead, and he's finally, like, what interested me in wanting to play the character is that he's a fractured human being, and he's fragile. So he's still dealing with sobriety. He's just gotten a new job. He's just opened himself up to romance. And, Charles Murray, who wrote and directed the film, we thought it would be fun to throw a grenade on top of all of that progress.
And you talk about how family is our first tribe. Well, your wife, Keisha, is right alongside you. She has her first film role playing your sister-in-law. And then your daughter, Kamari, also wrote a song for the movie. So how did you get the family involved, and why was it important for you to have them each have distinct roles in this movie?
Yeah, I mean, I'm so proud of both of them. With my wife, she's been training for years with the great Tasha Smith, who's a wonderful actress, wonderful director, filmmaker, and she has an incredible acting school for people in the Los Angeles area. They know about that. But and with my daughter, she's an aspiring, singer-songwriter, and she's been doing it since she was young as well. And the only thing that sucks is I didn't come up with those ideas. Charles Murray called me one day like, hey, you know who'd be great for this role? And I was like, who? He was like, your wife. I was like, damn, I should have thought of that, you know? And then the same thing with the music, because we didn't really have a budget for a soundtrack or things of that nature. But he was like, hey, man, you know, have your wife and your daughter come up with something. And I was like, I should have thought of that.
You need to take the credit for all this, Omar, in the future.
Yeah, I do it in my dreams.
So you, of course, are a man of many talents, and you also have your first fiction novel coming out later this year, Nubia, The Awakening, taking place in a climate-ravaged New York City. Why'd you decide to write this?
Well, Nubia has been, it's been in my head for over 10 years now, and you know, at the essence of it, it's a story about unity, but I wanted to imagine the world, you know, 100 years from now, and, you know, what if this climate change thing goes the other way? And I wanted to also meld that with displacement and things that we certain people are dealing with now, in terms of like immigration and things of that nature, and really unpack that. The book comes out in November. Pre-orders available now everywhere. You know, and for a younger generation, to get back to the essence of unity.
We'll have to have you back in November for the book release. But lastly, you play Detective Malcolm Howard in Power Book 3. What can we look forward to with your character's development in the next season? Oh man, Malcolm Howard, he's a woo. That character takes me through a lot because he's a heavy one. You know, it's going to be more unpacking of why he is how he is, and why the situation between you know, himself and Payne and things of that nature, how it all came to be. You know, it's been weird. We all have dealt with the pandemic and things of that nature, so it was a little weird going back to filming. But now we're hopefully post that. You know, so I'm ready to get back to work and make some fun happen. Hopefully post that is exactly right. Omar, thank you so much for joining us tonight. The film The Devil You Know is available to watch on streaming platforms and on demand. Thank you. And still to come, the maternity ward that is dealing with a major baby boom. Coming up.
Right now, with so much at stake, Sunday mornings, this is the place. Taking on all the tough questions, straightforward reporting, no spin, no hype, no bull. Thank you for making ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos the #1 Sunday morning news show versus the competition.
Welcome to This Week.
Take America's #1 news with you, anywhere you go, anytime, free. Download the ABC News app now. Breaking news, exclusives, 24/7, there for you with one touch. The ABC News app. Download it now.
The most powerful stories of our time, anytime. Nightline.
Ready for a little GMA-ish promo? Okay, here we go. GMA 7A every day with Robin, George, and Michael. That's how you start the day. Boom!
America's #1 news, ABC News. Most watched, most trusted, and streaming live to you anytime, anywhere, and free. This is ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news, free to you 24/7. Watch America's #1 news whenever you want it, wherever you are, anytime. ABC News Live, streaming live and free on all platforms.
Springtime is extra sweet this year for the maternity unit at one Kansas City area hospital. 10 nurses and 1 doctor all expecting at the same time. Alan Shope with our partner station KMBC introduces us to these amazing moms-to-be in tonight's Local Lowdown.
I'm one of 10 nurses and one physician here at Liberty Hospital expecting.
Which begs the question.
What's in the water?
No kidding, it may or may not be a record, but yes, 10 nurses and a doctor, all in the same maternity unit, are expecting.
May 27th. May 27th. June 18th. July 20th. July 30th. August 13th. September 6th. October the 8th. October 17th. October 31st.
That's a busy schedule.
I think almost all of our shifts are consumed by baby talk. We talk about names, how we're decorating. Some of us share, some of us don't.
We actually haven't had anyone say the same names yet.
Yeah, that's probably the tricky part.
We have 3 that are being surprise babies, but the rest of us know.
Some of us don't want to know.
And the patients in the maternity ward got a lot of questions.
Yeah, they're all very shocked.
They just usually ask like what I'm having. They're excited for us.
The nurses say in no way was this planned, with the first 2 babies expected on the same day in a couple of weeks. The last one right now expected on Thanksgiving.
We have lots of play dates in our future.
It's really nice to go through this journey together. It's a pretty big deal to have a baby. We've made jokes that some of our nurses that aren't expecting should open a daycare.
That's a great idea. What is in the water?
Yeah, I don't know, but people are going to come here and want some.
Or don't drink the water there if you don't want an unexpected surprise. Our thanks to Alan Shope for that. And that is our show for tonight. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. I'm Lindsay Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. Have a great night.
America's #1 news, ABC.